We will now have a look at solubility of gases in liquids. What is the effect of temperature on the solubility of a gas in a liquid? To understand this, we have to understand the nature of process. If you consider a gas dissolving in a liquid, this is a liquid and you are dissolving a gas, what you observe is from gaseous state you are going into the liquid state. This is similar to condensation. Hence, dissolution of a gas in a liquid can be considered equivalent to condensation. So, dissolution is equivalent to condensation, and during condensation you are aware that heat is evolved. Condensation therefore is an exothermic process, or delta H value is negative. Based on this, Le-Chatelier's principle can be applied and the effect of temperature can be understood quite easily. If you have an increase in temperature, if temperature is increased, then this will result in decrease of solubility. Solubility decreases. So, because delta H is negative, increase in temperature, the equilibrium will shifted in such a direction wherein solubility decreases. Therefore, if temperature is increased, solubility decreases, and on the other hand, if temperature is decreased, solubility will increase. Under Henry's law, we have also taken KH value, and on the basis of KH value, you already have arrived at this parameter as to how with increase or decrease in temperature, how solubility will be affected. KH value, on the basis of this, you can also arrive at this. Now, what is one application that we observe because of this? We observe that aquatic life, the population is more in cold water. So, if you consider the sea, the upper portion the temperature is higher, the lower portion temperature is lower, and therefore, the marine life or the aquatic life, the population will be more in colder water, because in cold water the percentage of oxygen that is dissolved will be greater. So, this is something on effect of temperature on the solubility of gases in liquids. With this, we will move on to the next law, but before we move on to the next law, we have to understand the concept of vapor pressure, which you already have taken in states of matter in first year. The concept of vapor pressure goes like this. We will take up vapor pressure and understand the concept of vapor pressure. Let me consider a liquid in a container. So, this is a liquid and you have got the liquid molecules. Consider a closed system. Now, at any given temperature, some number of liquid molecules will go into the vapor phase. Why this happens? You have got liquid molecules colliding with each other, and during collision some of the molecules might get enough energy to overcome the attractive force and will go into the vapor phase. So, this is the liquid phase, this is the vapor phase. Now, the molecules of vapor are also in random motion, and some of them will strike the surface of the liquid, and when that happens, because of attraction, these molecules in the vapor phase will again go back into the liquid phase. And at a given temperature, so temperature should be constant. At a given temperature, there is some equilibrium that is established between the molecules in the liquid and in the vapor phase. At this particular stage, there is some pressure that is exerted by the vapor with the liquid with which it is in equilibrium with. This pressure that is exerted constitutes the vapor pressure. So, in a simple phrase we can understand vapor pressure as the pressure exerted by the vapor over the liquid with which it is in equilibrium with which it is in equilibrium. Of course, all this will happen at a given temperature. If temperature increases, more number of molecules will go into vapor phase and the vapor pressure will increase. With this as the background, let us now consider a liquid mixture. We will now have a solution obtained by mixing two liquids. One property that we associate with this liquids is that they are volatile. Two volatile liquids. So, you are mixing two volatile liquids and you are getting a liquid solution. Let us try to understand what happens in such a situation. I have a container, and in this container the solution is formed. The solution is formed because of one of the components, it is a liquid and this is volatile. That means some molecules will go into the vapor phase as well. You have the second component as well. So, there is component 2, this is a liquid, even this is volatile, and therefore, you will also have component 2 in the vapor phase. In such a situation, we need to understand the partial pressure of each component that is exerted over the liquid. You have got component 1 as well as component 2, and we should be able to understand what are the partial pressures of each of the components. I have got component 1 and I have got component 2. So, what is partial pressure of component 1 and partial pressure of component 2? This is understood with the help of a law known as the Raoult's law. Raoult's law. Now, what does Raoult's law tell? In a solution consisting of volatile liquids, the partial pressure of each component is proportional to its mole fraction present in the solution. That means, the partial pressure of each component, there are two components, partial pressure of component 1 is proportional to the mole fraction of the component in the solution. So, what is the mole fraction of component 1 in the solution? The partial pressure will be directly proportional to the mole fraction of this component. Similarly, the partial pressure of component 2 will be proportional to the mole fraction of the second component. I remove the proportionality sign. The constant in this particular case will be equal to the vapor pressure of the pure component. How is this given? P10. What does P10 indicate? It indicates the vapor pressure of pure component 1, pure liquid component 1. Similarly, partial pressure of component 2 will be given by mole fraction of that component into the vapor pressure of pure component P20. Let me therefore state Raoult's law once again. I have got in a solution consisting of volatile liquids, in a solution containing volatile liquids, the partial vapor pressure of each component each component is proportional to its mole fraction in the solution. So, because of component 1 and 2, I have got some vapor pressure exerted because of 1, partial pressure 1, some vapor pressure exerted because of 2, component 2, this I give it as P2. In such a situation, let me apply Dalton's law of partial pressure. And what does Dalton's law of partial pressure state? It states that the total pressure is given as the sum of the individual partial pressures. Hence, P total can be given as the sum of the individual partial pressures. There are two components, partial pressure of component 1 plus partial pressure of component 2 will give you the total vapor pressure of the solution obtained by mixing two volatile liquids. Let us understand this Raoult's law graphically. If you want to draw a graph which includes both the components, let me take this y axis, I have got the vapor pressure. Along the x axis, let me take the mole fraction. Now, let me take component 1. If I take component 1 along the x axis, the starting point mole fraction of component 1 over here, assume that it is 0 and the maximum value will be equal to 1. And what I understand is partial vapor pressure according to Raoult's law is equal to x1 into P1 0. Now, therefore, as the mole fraction increases, the partial vapor pressure will increase and this equation corresponds to a linear curve and I should get a straight line of this kind. Now, what is this point over here? This point over here is P10. Why? Because if x1 is equal to 1, then partial vapor pressure is equal to the vapor pressure of the pure liquid. This is the point that I get on the y axis. Now, I also know that the sum of the mole fractions of all the components in a solution is equal to 1. Therefore, if x1 is 1, then this component should be 0, x2 therefore is equal to 0, and if x1 is 0, then x2 is equal to 1. And therefore, with respect to this particular equation, I should get a straight line. So, let this straight line be something like this, and the point on the y axis now will be the vapor pressure of the pure component P20. Now, if Dalton's law is applied, you should get P total is equal to P1 plus P2. How will the line look on this particular curve? You will have a straight line joining these 2 points. Imagine any particular composition. Suppose if the composition is somewhere like x1 is 0.25, x2 is 0.75, how much is P1? This distance. How much is P2? The distance over here. So, I have to add the 2, I will be able to get the total over here, this point over here. I have to do this for all the composition, I should get a straight line. So, this is how I understand the application of Dalton's law to this. Now, there might be solutions which might not adhere to this particular law. If they adhere to this law, then you will get curves like this, but then there is a possibility that this may not be obeyed. There might be some solutions whose partial vapor pressure is more than expected. In such a situation, you will usually get curves like this, which is more, the partial vapor pressure is greater than what is expected from Raoult's law, and because of this the total vapor pressure is also greater than what is expected according to the Raoult's law. Such solutions will have a curve like this. Now similarly, you will have a deviation of this category. You might have a deviation which is lower. The partial vapor pressure is lower than what is expected according to the Raoult's law, and the total vapor pressure is also lower. Now based on this, you can understand the two categories of solutions. There are solutions which obey Raoult's law over the entire concentration range. So this is the concentration range that we have. Over the entire concentration range, this Raoult's law is obeyed, and because of this the total vapor pressure is equal to the sum of the individual partial pressure P1 plus P2. P total is equal to P1 plus P2. So if Raoult's law is obeyed, you are expecting a curve like this. But then there are solutions which do not obey this Raoult's law. If a solution obeys Raoult's law, then such a solution is referred to as an ideal solution. So this is a curve for an ideal solution. But then there are solutions which do not obey, you get deviations. These are non-ideal solution. These are non-ideal solution. You observe that some non-ideal solutions show a deviation which is higher than what is expected. Such solutions are what are referred to as positive deviation from Raoult's law. Positive deviation. So this is a negative deviation, lower. So this curve is lower than what is expected. This represents the curve for negative deviation from Raoult's law. Negative deviation from Raoult's law. We will go through ideal solutions and non-ideal solutions in detail, but then let us try to understand how we can relate the total vapor pressure with mole fraction of any of the components using Raoult's law. Let me assume P total now on the basis of what I have explained. This according to Raoult's law is mole fraction of component 1 into vapor pressure of pure component 1 plus x2 into P2 0. Now if I want to express this in terms of mole fraction of any of the components, I can express this in terms of component 2 or component 1. Let me assume this in terms of component 2. I have got x1 plus x2 is equal to 1. Therefore, x1 I can write this as 1 minus x2. Let me substitute this over here, 1 minus x2 into P1 0 plus x2 into P2 0. So this is P total. I will be able to simplify this and write the final expression as P1 0 plus P2 0 minus P1 0 into x2. So what I have done is I have expressed P total as a function of mole fraction of any one of the components. I could also express this in terms of x1. All I have to do is I have to substitute x2 as 1 minus x1 in this equation. I will get a modified version in terms of x1. Let us understand Raoult's law better with the help of a couple of problems. Now this is a problem under Raoult's law, and what I have to find out is the composition of the components in the solution phase as well as the vapor phase. Now what is given is P total is 600 millimeter of mercury. First we will find out the composition in the solution phase. Now, what do you mean by composition in the solution phase? You have to find out the mole fraction of these components A and B in the solution. So, we make use of the Raoult's law, and we understand that P total is given by the vapor pressure of the pure component 1 plus this difference in the vapor pressure of the pure components into mole fraction of component 2. So, I have to find out mole fraction of component 2, and once I find out x2, I should be able to find out x1. So, that is the first part of the problem. All I have to do is I have to substitute. P total is given, this is 600 millimeter of mercury, P10. So, 1 is A over here. So, this is 450 millimeter of mercury plus the difference will be 700 minus 450 into x2. So, this will be 150 over this difference is 250. So, this is mole fraction of component 2. This will give me a ratio of 3 by 5, which is equal to 0.6. What I know is sum of the mole fraction of all the components is equal to 1, and therefore, if x2 is equal to 0.6, x1 should be equal to 0.4. These are the mole fractions of the components in the solution. Now, what is the composition in the vapor phase? So, just to make you realize what is this about. So, you have the solution. So, this is the solution part, and in this I have got components 1 and 2 or A and B. I have got mole fraction of component 1, mole fraction of component 2 in the solution, but they are also in the vapor phase, and I have got components 1 as well as 2 in the vapor phase. Just to differentiate between the mole fraction in solution as well as in the vapor, let me represent the mole fraction in vapor phase as Y1. Mole fraction of component 2 will be Y2. Now, how is this obtained? So, to get these mole fraction of these components, so we will have to use these formulae or this particular method. So, I am going to find out the composition now in the vapor phase. Composition in the vapor phase. So, what I have over here is the partial pressure of any component, say I, is given as yi, that is mole fraction of the component, into, instead of the P10 in Raoult's law, here you have got P total. Therefore, I will be able to find out mole fraction of any component in the vapor phase as partial pressure of the component divided by P total. So, you have to apply these formulae to get mole fraction in the vapor phase. But how will you get the partial vapor pressure of each component? Partial vapor pressure of each component now can be obtained by Raoult's law. So, let me take, say, the first component. So, this will be given by the mole fraction of that component into vapor pressure of the pure component A. I will be able to get the vapor pressure of the component, the partial vapor pressure of the component. So, X A, the first component, this is 0.4 into vapor pressure of the pure component. So, this will be 450 millimeter of mercury. This will be a value of 180 millimeter of mercury. So, this is the partial vapor pressure of the component A. P total is 600 and the partial vapor pressure of component A is 180. Therefore, the mole fraction of the component in vapor phase, the first component A will be given by the partial vapor pressure of component A divided by P total. This is 180 over 600. So, if Ya is equal to 0.3, Yb will be equal to 1 minus 0.3, which is equal to 0.7. So, these will be the composition in the vapor phase. There are two sections in this particular problem. In the first section, we have to find out the total vapor pressure of a solution obtained by mixing a particular amount of chloroform and a certain amount of dichloromethane. The vapor pressure of pure chloroform and dichloromethane, they are given. In the next section, you have to find out what is the mole fraction of each component in the vapor phase. First, let us find out the total vapor pressure. Now, how to find out the total vapor pressure? On the basis of Raoult's law, we have arrived at the P total as P10 plus P20 minus P10 into X2. Now, let me modify this equation to suit this particular problem. Let me assume, say, 1 as chloroform and 2 as dichloromethane. So, then P total can be given as, so this is the vapor pressure of pure chloroform plus this will be dichloromethane minus P0 of chloroform into mole fraction of dichloromethane. This is unknown. You have to find out the total vapor pressure. These values are given. You will be able to find out the total vapor pressure if you can find out the mole fraction of dichloromethane. Hence, the first section of this solution will be to get the mole fraction of dichloromethane. How do you get this? This is given by number of moles of dichloromethane. Mole fraction of any component is given by number of moles of that component divided by total number of moles. Total number of moles will be number of moles of dichloromethane plus number of moles of chloroform. Now, how do you get number of moles of dichloromethane or chloroform? Mass by molar mass. Mass by molar mass will give you the number of moles of any of the components. So, I have got mass as 40 grams divided by molar mass of dichloromethane. So, you have to add the atomic weights. So, I have got 1 carbon 12, 2 hydrogens 2, 2 chlorines 35.5 into 2. So, which is 71, you will get a value of 85. Similarly, in the denominator, you have to get the number of moles of chloroform. Chloroform is 25.5. Just like I have calculated for dichloromethane, I will be able to calculate for chloroform as well, 119.5, and this value for dichloromethane will be equal to 0.688. Now, if mole fraction of dichloromethane is 0.688, mole fraction of chloroform CHCl3 should be equal to 1 minus 0.688, which can be calculated as 0.312. So, let me carry forward this to get the total vapor pressure. Total vapor pressure therefore will be equal to P0 of chloroform is 200 plus the difference will be 415 minus 200 into, now I have just calculated the mole fraction of dichloromethane as 0.688. I simplify this, I should be able to get a value of 347.9 millimeter of mercury. So, this will be the first part of the solution. You have calculated the vapor pressure of the solution obtained by mixing these two liquids on the basis of Raoult's law. The second part of the problem now, I have to get the mole fraction of each component in the vapor phase. That means, I have to get in the vapor phase, I represent mole fraction as Y. I have to get mole fraction of dichloromethane in the vapor phase as well as the mole fraction of chloroform in the vapor phase. So, this is my requirement, and what I understand is CH2Cl2 mole fraction will be given by partial pressure of dichloromethane divided by the P total. Now, how much is partial pressure of dichloromethane? How to get partial pressure of dichloromethane? So, this can be obtained on the basis of Raoult's law. I have mole fraction of component dichloromethane into the vapor pressure of pure component CH2Cl2. Now, mole fraction of dichloromethane. What is the mole fraction of dichloromethane? So, this is 0.688 into vapor pressure of pure dichloromethane is 415. So, this value will be 285.5 millimeter of mercury. So, this I substitute. P total is 600. This value I have obtained on the basis of Raoult's law. In solution, I know the mole fraction and I have done this calculation. This is 285.5 divided by P total divided by 600. I get a value of 0.82. Once I get the mole fraction of dichloromethane, getting mole fraction of chloroform should not be difficult. This is 1 minus mole fraction of dichloromethane, which is 1 minus 0.82, I get a value of 0.18. Let us take up this section on ideal and non-ideal solution. We have seen Raoult's law, and if any solution obeys Raoult's law over the entire concentration range, then such a solution will be referred to as an ideal solution. But then if a solution does not obey Raoult's law, then such a solution will be referred to as a non-ideal solution. So, the first point that I can mention under ideal and non-ideal solution is that in an ideal solution, Raoult's law is obeys Raoult's law over the entire concentration range, but here Raoult's law is not obeyed. Now, why does a solution obey Raoult's law or it does not obey Raoult's law? Let us try to understand what happens when liquids are mixed and a solution is formed. Let me consider an example in benzene and toluene. Let me consider a solution obtained by mixing these two liquids, benzene and toluene. Now, what you know is benzene and toluene are structurally very similar. There is only a difference of methyl group, and therefore, in solution the interaction between benzene and toluene molecule will be very similar to the interaction between benzene or between toluene molecules in toluene. Now, what do you understand by this? You have got pure benzene, and in pure benzene, benzene molecules will have intermolecular attraction. You have got toluene, in toluene, the toluene molecules also will have a particular kind of interaction. They were in the pure states. Now, you have mixed the two. In solution, therefore, interaction is between benzene and toluene now. Now, because of the structural similarity, the interaction between benzene and toluene is almost equivalent to the interactions which are present in the pure states. This can be in general represented if I have got two components A and B, the intermolecular interaction in pure components, let me represent them as AA interaction or BB interaction. The interaction in solution now will be an AB interaction. Such systems wherein the intermolecular interaction in pure components is equivalent to the intermolecular interactions between the components in the solution will form ideal solution. So, when will an ideal solution be formed? An ideal solution will be formed when the intermolecular interaction in pure components. So, interactions in the pure components I represent as AA interaction or BB interaction. This is similar to the intermolecular interaction between the components in the solution, which I represent as AB interaction. Now, this situation will not be there in most of the liquid mixtures. I have got an example in benzene and toluene which exhibits close to ideal behavior. Some other examples I might have, say in chloroethane and bromoethane. So, this mixture will be almost close to ideal behavior. I might have normal hexane, normal heptane. So, they are next to each other in the homologous series, normal hexane, normal heptane. These are structurally similar. Instead of chlorine you have got another halogen bromine, and therefore these mixtures can be considered as examples for ideal solution. But then there are several examples which will not exhibit this behavior. So, what will happen in such cases? The intermolecular interaction in the pure components, which I have represented as AA interaction or BB interaction, they will not be equal to the intermolecular interaction present in the component of the solution. So, AB interaction is not identical. Now, what will happen because of this? What will be the consequence if the interaction is not the same? Let me take the help of this diagram to make you realize this. I have got components, say 1 and 2 or A and B, and these are the components that are present in the solution. So, this is my solution. So, this is the vapor phase, and in the vapor phase I have got components of A, I have also got components of B, and because of this I will represent partial pressure of A and partial pressure of B, and I can express this on the basis of Raoult's law. And when I express this on the basis of Raoult's law, I will also be able to express the P total. P total is the sum of these two. Now, just imagine a situation wherein the interaction is not similar. That means, if the interaction between A and B is now attractive in nature, the interactions in the pure state is less, the attraction is less, the attraction between the components in the solution is more now. Because of this, the molecules of A and B are now less likely to go into the vapor phase. So, the number of molecules of A in vapor is less, number of molecules of B in vapor phase is less, hence the total vapor pressure that is there, P total, that is now observed, that is now experimentally determined, is now less than what is expected from Raoult's law. What is expected according to Raoult's law? I have the sum of the partial pressure of the two components. So, this sum should be expected, but now this what is observed is less. Why it is less? Because of the interaction, and therefore, whenever I have interaction, I will get P total as less than the sum of the partial pressure of the individual component. This is what we understand as negative deviation from Raoult's law, negative deviation. But if the interaction is positive, what will happen? If the interaction is now repulsive in nature, first one, interaction is attractive, I have told you the consequence, P total is less than the sum. But if now the interaction is repulsive or attraction is less, in the pure liquid attraction was more, AA-BB interaction is more, then here it is less. So, the molecules are less attracted towards each other. So, you would expect more vapor to be formed and P total will be greater. So, that will be the positive interaction, positive deviation from Raoult's law. Therefore, I will be able to add a few more columns. So, this is my non-ideal solution showing negative deviation. So, just now I told that when is a negative deviation formed? A negative deviation is formed when the interaction in pure component is less, interaction in the solution is more, less will go to the vapor, total vapor pressure will be less. This will be the negative deviation from Raoult's law. When will positive deviation be observed? Non-ideal solution showing positive deviation from Raoult's law. When will this be observed? This will be observed when the intermolecular interaction in the pure states is greater now. This interaction which is present in the solution is less. When it is less, more number of molecules are likely to go into vapor and P total now will be greater than what is expected. So, because of this, P total will be in this particular case less than what is expected according to Raoult's law. So, this is what you expect according to Raoult's law, but actually it is less, therefore, it is negative. P total now is now greater than the sum of the vapor pressure of these components. As a result of this, what changes do you expect in physical properties? In negative deviation, the interaction between the components is greater, and when there is more interaction, it is equivalent to some kind of bonding, and because of this bonding, heat will be liberated. During bonding, you know that heat is liberated, exothermic process. Chemical bonding is an exothermic process. Therefore, because of greater interaction, heat will be liberated. Therefore, you would expect delta H during mixing change in enthalpy. So, delta H mixing means during mixing of the two components A and B, what is the enthalpy change? Enthalpy change is negative because this is an exothermic process. In positive deviation, what happens? Between the components in solution, the interaction is less. Therefore, to keep these two components together, you have to supply heat, or this process would be an endothermic process. Delta H mixing is positive, or you could also represent this as delta H is less than 0. Here you could represent this as delta H greater than 0. Both mean the same. This is an exothermic process, whereas mixing in this particular case is an endothermic process. What will happen to the change in volume? Is there any volume change or not? So, let us try to understand this particular part. The molecules come closer, and because the molecule come closer in the solution, the total volume of the solution will now be less than the sum of the individual volumes of the components. How to understand this? Suppose I have got component A, and this component A I take 10 milliliter, component B also I take 10 milliliter. Now, on mixing these two components, let me take an imaginary case. This is negative deviation, and I get a volume of say 19.99 ml or 19.9 milliliter. Now, according to Raoult's law, what is the expectation? the sum of the volumes of the individual liquids should be 20 ml, but now what I am getting is 19.9. So, the total volume of the solution is less than the sum of the volumes of the individual liquids. Hence, change in volume delta V during mixing, change in volume, what will be the difference? 19.9 minus 20, it will be a negative value. So, this is negative, delta V mixing is negative. What will happen in this particular category? The molecules once again are having less attraction, and because of this the tendency is to move away from each other, and when they move away from each other, what would happen is expansion will be observed. So, if I take A and B once again, say this is 25 milliliter, this is 25 milliliter, I am expecting a total volume of 50 milliliter according to Raoult's law, but on mixing, because of positive deviation, I might get a volume of say 50.1 or 50.2 milliliter. What is the meaning of this? The total volume of the solution is greater than the sum of the individual volumes of the components. Hence, delta V mixing in this particular case is greater than 0 or it is positive. So, it is very easy to remember. If I have got a non-ideal solution having positive deviation, then delta H mixing is positive, this is positive, even this is positive. I have got a non-ideal solution showing negative deviation, change in enthalpy will be negative, change in volume also will be negative. Therefore, one thing is very clear on the basis of the discussion that I have carried just now. A non-ideal solution, change in enthalpy during mixing will not be equal to 0, it is either less than 0 or greater than 0. Change in volume during mixing will not be 0, it is either less than 0 or greater than 0 depending upon whether it is negative deviation or positive deviation. None of these things are expected to happen in an ideal solution. So, the reason is very clear, the interactions are very similar, and because the interactions are very similar, heat is neither evolved nor absorbed, and the total volume also will remain the same. For an ideal solution, therefore, delta H mixing is equal to 0, whereas change in volume during mixing is equal to 0. A very important section for exams, you might have to understand this section in the following way. One is the definition, what is ideal solution, what is a non-ideal solution, it obeys Raoult's law, does not obey Raoult's law. The second part would be the characteristics of each one of these. So, I might express the characteristics of ideal solution, point number 1, 2, 3, 4, characteristics of non-ideal solution 1, 2, 3, 4, characteristics of a non-ideal solution showing negative deviation, does not obey Raoult's law, what is the nature of interaction, delta H mixing. So, in terms of characteristics, I should be able to give answers. The other way in which you have to realize is the differences between ideal and non-ideal solution. So, you should be able to answer differences, point number 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can also be asked differences between non-ideal solution showing negative deviation or positive deviation. Examples for ideal solution I have already given. Let us consider some examples under non-ideal solution showing negative deviation and positive deviation. Let me take this mixture of acetone and chloroform. Acetone is CH3 twice C double bond O. So, this is a ketone, contains a carbonyl group. Let me take the second component as a chloroform. Chloroform is CHCl3. Now, what is there in pure acetone? Between acetone molecules there is dipole-dipole interaction. Carbonyl group is polar, and therefore in acetone there is dipole-dipole interaction. Chloroform is also polar, therefore there is dipole-dipole interaction. But when I mix the two, I now have this hydrogen in chloroform getting attracted to the more electronegative oxygen, formation of a hydrogen bond, and this bond is stronger than the dipole-dipole interactions present in the pure liquids. Hence, AB interaction is greater. So, you have got one liquid mixture. Similar examples can be understood for phenol. Phenol is C6H5OH and aniline. Aniline is C6H5NH2. So, I can have hydrogen of aniline getting attracted to the electronegative oxygen. So, I might have even hydrogen bonding formed in this particular case. So, this is another example, phenol aniline mixture. So, let me list the examples. One is phenol aniline, the second one is acetone chloroform. I also have all strong acids and water, say for example concentrated HCl water mixture. So, here also there is attraction observed. So, these are some of the examples of liquid solutions showing negative deviation from Raoult's law. So, when is this observed? When you have got a possibility of a stronger bond being formed. Now, what are some of the examples on this side? You have this mixture of acetone and alcohol. So, I have got acetone plus ethanol mixture. Now, what will happen in this particular mixture? So, you have got ethanol molecules. In ethanol molecule, there is hydrogen bonding. Between ethanol molecules, there is a strong bond, hydrogen bond. But because of this addition of acetone, the bonding between ethanol molecules will now be weakened, and therefore, in the final resulting solution, the bonding between acetone and ethanol is on the lower side. So, such examples could be considered under non-ideal solutions showing positive deviation from Raoult's law. Another aspect that could be understood with related to ideal and non-ideal solution will be formation of azeotropes. Let us first understand what are azeotropes. Azeotropes are liquid mixtures which have a constant boiling point. So, these are constant boiling liquid mixtures. Let me take an example. I have got ethanol, C2H5OH is ethyl alcohol, ethanol. If the composition of this is roughly 95.5% and the remaining part is say water, so which is roughly 4.5%, then this mixture forms a constant boiling liquid mixture. The meaning is at a definite temperature, the entire mixture will boil off, and therefore, separation of ethyl alcohol and water at this particular composition is not possible. Fractional distillation cannot be used to separate ethyl alcohol and water, because as soon as this particular composition is arrived at, the entire mixture will boil off. Say for example, the temperature at which it boils off is 78.2 degree Celsius. Now, what is interesting is you have the boiling point of water as 100 degree Celsius, a boiling point of ethyl alcohol is 78.5 degree Celsius, and this particular mixture forms an azeotrope. And what I observe is the boiling point of this mixture is lower than the boiling point of either of the components. The second aspect is this mixture is one which does not obey Raoult's law, and it shows positive deviation from Raoult's law. In ethyl alcohol molecules there is hydrogen bonding. I add water molecules. What will happen is the bonding in ethyl alcohol molecules will get weakened, and ultimately positive deviation from Raoult's law will be obeyed. So, there are two things. One thing is this mixture does not obey Raoult's law, it is under positive deviation. The second point is this forms an azeotrope, and moreover the temperature at which it boils is lower. Hence, we tell that low boiling azeotropes or minimum boiling azeotropes are obtained in such a case. Solutions which exhibit positive deviation form low boiling azeotropes. I have got nitric acid water mixture exhibiting negative deviation from Raoult's law. So, this will exhibit negative deviation. Nitric acid boiling point is roughly 83 degrees Celsius, water is 100 degrees Celsius. But you know this mixture exhibits negative deviation, and interestingly the azeotrope that is formed will have a boiling point of say 120 degrees Celsius. This is for the composition of 68% nitric acid and 32% water. So, just like 95.5% ethyl alcohol and 4.5% water forms an azeotrope, this mixture also will form an azeotrope. And what is the boiling point of this mixture? It is higher than that of individual nitric acid or of water, and therefore, what I understand is this particular mixture will form high boiling azeotropes. So, one thing is very sure, a non-ideal solution will usually form azeotropes. They form azeotropes, but an ideal solution will not form azeotropes. So, no azeotropes are formed. So, this can be taken as another point of difference under ideal and non-ideal solutions.